Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Esther Miroyo and I'm glad to have all of you here as new subscribers. Thank you very much. So the reason for me to start this channel is because I wanted to know people's journey on their careers. I wanted to know how people deal with unemployment and as well as merging fashion into different careers. And also once in a while we'll be doing our DIYs just to get our hands into doing some work. So now that you've known what the channel will be entailing, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my career journey and just to tell you a little bit about how I've coped with unemployment. So I'll say my career journey started way back in university because I got my first internships while I was at Quare University. I remember my first internship was at Street Families Rehabilitation Trust Fund, and that's when I really got the grasp of knowing what I studied in school would entail in the field. I remember that working with that particular organization gave me an inch into working into the field. And my first assignment was in Madari slums as well as Isili because the organization's vision was to help in profiling for street families within Nairobi. So my task was to do mobilization as well as help in profiling so that the street families can have proper identification for them to use for government resources and things such as that. Then my second internship was with Africa Youth Trust, an organization that encourages youths to think above and to think of entrepreneurs. So while I was working with them, I got to be trained into labor markets and I also got to work with a lot of youths and small entrepreneurship groups. So my two internships were in between 2013 and 2014. And when I finished my internships, I went back to school for my fourth year, which was in 2014. And I remember 2015, before I graduated in May, I got a job with Concern Worldwide, which is also an NGO based in Nairobi and Marsabit. And their work in Nairobi at that particular time, I was engaged in working in Mukuru slums, in Viwandani and Korokocho. So it was a project that aimed in coming up with indicators that would help in emergency or disaster emergencies within Nairobi slums. And this is because whenever there are any urban emergencies, the people who suffer the most are those in slums. So that was their main project while I was working with them, and that was my first paying job. I worked with them from 2015 April until 2016 June when our contract and the project itself ended. It was then absorbed by Red Cross Kenya, but I did not continue with the project because Red Cross wanted us to now be volunteers as opposed to working with Concern who are paying us. And as I've said, that Concern gave me my first paying job. I remember it was 22,000 after all the taxes have been deducted. And because I got a job just before graduation, I was able to use my second salary on my graduation party. I called a few of my friends and we went out. I can also say that my first job is the kind of job that I'll always be grateful for because a lot of things that I own or I still have up to now are things that I bought while I was still working on my first job. So now my job ended in 2016 in June, and the half part of that year I was unemployed. I I did not know how to cope with unemployment at that particular time, but I remember thinking of starting a business of selling clothes, but I did not really know how to execute that business plan. So I didn't try to start it, I just left it like that. And at the same time, the same organization would call me back for small projects, for small follow-up projects, in coordination with Ministry of Health and Nairobi County, as well as child protection and maternal health projects. So I was able to engage in different departments, and I got different experiences while working for Concern Worldwide. So in 2017 as well, I think the whole of that year I was unemployed, and I remember one of my friends called Melissa, who I studied in uni with. She called me and asked me if I'm engaged anywhere, and I said no. So she told me I'm working for an events organizing company, and we have an event soon. They pay 2,500 per day. The event will be for 2 days. Are you available? Can you come in for the job? So I felt it was a good deal and I went. At that time, it was in Nakuru. The event itself, we were organizing for FMD, the tractor company that's based in Nakuru. So one of the directors of that organizing company, she liked my work, she liked how I engaged with people, and they would call me back the better part of 2017. They would call me for any events that they had. But now this particular job did not give me job security, because it meant they were only going to call me when they have events, and especially if they have events that need a bigger number of ushers, because I was working as an usher. So I had now to go back to the drawing board and try and restructure my thoughts on what I'd do. I also didn't want to be stressed just thinking about work, but also at that time I thought of going back to school to start my master's. My parents could not afford my master's, so I thought of starting to apply scholarships and other short courses that would help me and would build up my skills and also build up my CV. So now in 2018, yes, oh sorry, in 2017 at the same time, because I was majorly unemployed that year, there was a small there was a small program for women empowerment in Eastlands that was introduced or was established by Savara from Sauti Sol, and they were sponsored by a betting company, a sports betting company. So their main aim was to try and empower young women within Eastlands who play sports. And I remember seeing a post on Instagram. The first thing I did was to DM them. My intention was to try and get a job for and work with them for that program. But when I talked to the coordinator, she told me at that particular time they could not hire any more people because it was a small project. But she asked me if I was willing to be part of the program just to get empowered as well. So I went to the program. I I remember it was three people who are the oldest. So me, a friend of mine called MJ, who has really encouraged me into starting this channel, and another one called Barbara. So because we were the oldest, and because also we were not chosen for playing football, we tried to engage ourselves and just to also mentor and talk to each other, and that's where we've remained friends up to now. That particular project helped me in knowing a lot about financial management, about lifestyle, and your physical body in general, as well as mentorship, because we would get a lot of celebrity mentors in different departments: sports, music, law, some who are working with NGOs. So they would come to mentor us, and after the end of the program, we would each get one mentor who would try and guide us. And we did job shadowing. So I'm also really grateful for that opportunity. So now in 2017 was the same year that we had elections in Kenya. And when Uhuru won, I remember Raila Odinga's team, they were not impressed, and so he ordered for demonstrations. The country was at a standstill. There was a lot of tension. And at the end of the year, I remember one person called me. He's called Killion. We've remained friends up to now. He was a coordinator for an NGO that had just launched in Kenya, and it's called TED Limited. It changed to TED Africa. So he called me and told me I was shortlisted for an interview for a particular job that I had applied for. And when he called me, I told him I'm very happy that you've called me, but at this particular time there's a lot of tension, especially in Eastlands, because that's where I've lived. And I told him, is it okay for me to reschedule the interview maybe to another day, just because I would also want to be safe while I'm coming for the interview. So he told me, give me a few minutes, let me call the country director, so that he can confirm. Then if it's okay, I'll call you back. After around 5 minutes, he called me and told me that the country director was okay with it, and that I could go for an interview. I could choose a day between now Thursday and Friday, because they had called me in for Wednesday. So I went for the interview on a Friday. The interview went smoothly. I remember I didn't have my uh, Kenya secondary school certificate. So I was asked to go and bring it. And because I studied in Western, I traveled the next week on a night, then collected the certificate, came back to Nairobi. And after a week's time, I was called now for the training. So the training took 3 days. And after that, we were supposed now to be given different areas to work in. But unfortunately, it took about 2 months for us now to be called for the actual project. This was because the NGO was new in Kenya, and there was a lot of protocol to be followed before we could be engaged in the field. So after we were called back now in February of 2018, I was among the people that went to the ASOL areas of Kenya. So I managed to work in Baringo, West Pokot, Turkana, and Samburu. And now my contract ended in 2018 June, end of June. So this was my second job, and I was able to save quite an amount of money because it was a well-paying field job. So I had saved some money, and I remember just when July had started, because the project had ended in June, someone called me while I was doing my laundry, and I picked up. And for some reason, I cannot remember what I talked to, or whatever I was talking to with this person. But when I ended the call, I just saw messages on my phone that I had sent money to someone. So up to now, I don't know what happened, but yes, I was scammed all of my savings. And at that point, I didn't know what to do. I was just stressed. I didn't know where to start. So all of my savings had gone, and I think that I had given them my PIN without even knowing, or I don't know what happened, but that's now in the past. So going back to the drawing board now, I have to think of what else can I do because all my savings are gone. Where do I start from? But I'm happy that my family has been supportive through everything that I've been going through. So at that time I just went back to God, and my faith grew really strong in God because I knew something better was going to come even after the tragedy of me being scammed and all my savings uh, being stolen from me. So now, a month later, I was called for another interview, and now by Give Directly, which is a cash transfer based organization that works in Kenya and a majority of countries within Africa and all over the world. So that was my first time hearing of Give Directly. When I went to the interview, it took some time. It was a very engageful interview, and I loved how I felt after the interview. But I told God, if I hope that I get the job, but if I don't, it's also okay. So I was called and told that you you passed the interview. We have a training coming soon, and you should be engaged through the training for about a week, then start work. The project with Give Directly was a pilot project. It was in Madare in settlement, formal in settlement area within Nairobi, and it was a youth enterprise program that would give cash transfer to youths within Nairobi, so eligible youths within Madare in Nairobi. And the project was a successful project. So it was a pilot project, meaning it took a very short time. So it was 4 months from August to December. And in December, we had a layoff because the project could not sustain more people and it had come to an end. But because we had an appraisal, a performance appraisal for among the I think 12 colleagues, we were asked to come back for 2 months, now in January and February, but we did not have a lot of work in the field. So three of my colleagues were asked to help out in the call center because Give Directly also has a call center department. So they helped in the call center, and I remained in the field with one of my associate field managers. But again, the work was still quite less for two people to handle. So I was asked to go to help out in Kilifi for the remaining time before our contract ended. So I went to Kilifi, worked and learned a few things because the projects were a little bit different, and the settings, also the location, were different. So there were different challenges that I learned from both projects. So now my contract ended in February of 2018, and in 2018 I would be called back by the events organizing company. It's called MMP. They would call me back for different events. Their main their main contractor was Communications Authority of Kenya, and they would organize a lot of events for CA. So the CA normally used to have Kikao Kiku events where they would go to different counties and have an event for about 3 to 5 days, just trying to create media awareness to different people in different counties. So when we would ever get a chance to work for 5 days, my team and I we would usually know that we are going to have some good amount of money to relay on. Then now in 2020, when Corona struck, it was in March, we had an event for CA, 5-day event for CA, which was supposed to be in Eldoret. So we traveled to Eldoret, and on 9th, when the corona hit the country, or rather it hit the whole world, and now Kenya had to take a step back and re-strategize just to know how to deal with the virus, because it was something new, that a strain that Africa had not seen, as well as the whole world. So this meant our job was going to be distracted, and it's because the government had to ban all its events that would accommodate more than, I think, 100 people, and the Kikao Kiku events would accommodate over 1,000 people. So now our working days were cut short by 3 days, meaning we were only going to be paid for 2 days, yet we had budgeted, or rather we had planned to have money for around 5 days. So we came back to Nairobi. Now corona has hit, there's lockdown everywhere. You can't even going to the gym now, you can't go to the gym, and a lot of companies went to remote working. So a lot of companies now decided to make sure that all their employees were working remotely, and even Give Directly had now taken up such a strategy, and they called me and some of my former colleagues who were unemployed, and those who had performed quite well during our last project. So they called us for a call center agent job from August to December. So from August to December, I worked as a call center agent with Give Directly. And respect to everyone who works as a call center agent, because for the first week that you're working, by the end of the day, you don't have your voice. You've talked so much, you just want to go and sleep. You can't even talk to someone else because you've talked a lot, and you have to ensure that you've maintained a good customer service while talking to people. And some people can just irritate you to the point that you would actually insult them, but you have to keep it professional. So I really learned a lot of embracing patience while working there. I learned it's good to know how to talk to people, because when someone is not seeing you and you're talking to them on a phone, there's not enough rapport to talk to really know this person. So they are judging you in the way that they are thinking of you, and you're also doing the same thing. So it's only their voice, your tone, and anything that's related to talking that's going to make that phone call an engageful and a successful phone call. So if you have friends who are working in the call center, please respect them, be nice to them, hug them once in a while, because they need that, depending with the company they are working for and the customer service that they are engaging with. So in December 2018, we again had an appraisal, a performance appraisal, and I was top 4 actually when it came to performance. Then in January, now the government had lessened up on restricting and on lockdown. So a lot of companies were going back to work to the field. So Give Directly was also doing that, and their projects in Bomet as well as Kilifi were embracing going back to the field. So me being asked to go to the field was something that I really wanted. So when I was asked between Kilifi and Bomet, I decided I should go to Bomet, because I had not interacted with the Kalenjins from Bomet, and I also just wanted to learn a little bit about them, know their culture well, as compared to Kilifi, because I had worked in Kilifi for a short while, and I felt I had known a little bit of their culture. So yes, that was my reason for choosing Bomet over Kilifi. So I went to Bomet in February, and I was engaged there for, I think, 10 months, because it was until December. When December reached, uh, my contract ended, or rather, I was among the few people that were laid off. And this was because the project in Bomet was coming to an end in a few months. Then another factor also was because I was the only non-Kalenjin in the office, meaning language barrier was an issue while I was working there. So they would rather retain people who are quite efficient when it came to the language. So that was one of the reasons. So now in 2021, again, we go back to the drawing board, and we are unemployed. The better part of 2021, sorry, the better part of 2021, I was unemployed also. And I now, because I'm aging, one, I'm almost 30, I thought, what can I do? Because I don't have a lot of savings. Uh, Jobs at the moment, there's a lot of unemployment in the country. And as much as I want to rely on my CV and my job experience, what else can I do to have an upper hand? So that's when I started thinking again about a business. And one of my colleagues called Judy, who is also my friend, we teamed up. We contributed, I think, 7K each, and decided to start selling handbags, which we bought from Isili. The business seemed quite nice, but now the issue was she got an offer to go work with Give directly in Kilifi, and I remained in Nairobi. And a lot of the bags that we had, they were in her possession, so it meant that we could not coordinate so well when it came to selling the bags. So the project just kind of vanished, and we went our different ways when it came to now the business. Then the same year, I started selling second-hand clothes, but I did not have good strategy when it came to marketing. I still don't have that good strategy. I'm learning a lot about marketing, a lot about promotion, and everything that you need to know when it comes to having a good business and engaging people on social media when you have a business. So now this is something that I picked up to try and cope up with my unemployment issue. I know people are very different, and there are people who would never want to be employed because they like being self employed and having their own businesses. Then there are people who actually like being employed, and I'm one of those people. I know it might come out as something strange, but a lot of people who are disciplined, a lot of people who kind of like following rules, don't find it so hard to be employed. And also at the same time, when you're employed, you kind of have some job security and some income security compared to when you have a business and it's not picked up as you wanted. So one of the things that I've also learned is, don't say you have a side hustle. You need to make your side hustle be your main income or be part of your income, because when you say you have a side hustle, it means you don't give it as much priority as you would other things that are giving you income as well. So that's one lesson that I'm going to I'm going to use when I'm continuing with my business of selling second-hand clothes. So now back to my journey. In 2021, we had elections. Yes, 2020, so, no, sorry, 2022, we had elections, and now I remember applying for a job that a friend of mine called Kimberly had sent me. It was in the newspaper by feeder for election monitors. So I applied for it and I got it. And we started our training just a day before pre-elections within Nairobi and other parts of the country. So when we reached the training, you were told the job itself had 12,800 applicants, and only the 102 of us were chosen. So this also tells you that whenever a job is meant for you, it's meant for you. And this is because I might be praying harder than you, but you would get that job. And also, God gives people grace in different jobs, and you can get a job because you are meant for that job, because your skills and your experience are up to par for that particular job. Or some people even get jobs through connections. Some people have godfathers out here who have helped them land different jobs. So whichever stage you are in life, just know that whatever you want to do when it comes to getting a job, give it your all. Pray to God to open more doors for you, because when most people are unemployed, that's when you get close to God. That's when you cry to God, and when God opens doors for you, remember to continue praising Him and giving praise to Him for what He has done and what He should do in the future. So I worked with feeder until for 6 months, and then it ended in October of 2022. Then November, December, up to now, I'm now engaged selling clothes and slowly establishing my online business. So, yes, that's my career and employment journey. So, I would like to know, what are some of the things, or how do you cope with unemployment? Has your career journey been smooth? Have you ever been unemployed? Uh, I would also like to know, how does your dressing say about you and your career, or you and your job? Do you dress in a particular way just because of your job? Are you restricted when it comes to fashion and styling in your job? So these are some of the things that we'll be talking about. And I'll also be having segments with guests, just to talk about their career journeys and all the things that I've described below. So please continue watching, watch the whole video, like, comment, subscribe, and share my videos as well, guys. So my next guest, I'm hoping that he'll be available next week after I've uploaded this video. It's going to be my dad. He's been a big inspiration when it comes to my career. He's been a rock to lean on. He's given me a lot of guidance just from after high school in choosing whichever course I wanted, to getting jobs. He's advised me a lot when it comes to contracts and signing and remuneration, all those things that uh, entail are entailed in contracts and in jobs. He's also stood with me. There are jobs that I've not mentioned, but I felt they were not right for me, maybe in terms of remuneration, in terms of the working areas, but he stood by me and understood that I had my own choice and my own reasons for not wanting to work in such jobs. So, as I finish, I would also want to ask you this: where do you draw the line when it comes to a job environment, and you feel the salary is too low for me, so I'm not going to work here? When you feel I'm not going to volunteer, I'm not going to do internships. Does age matter when it comes to internships? Does age matter when it comes to volunteering? Do you feel a lot of companies and NGOs take advantage of people who volunteer? I would also want to know which are the kind of jobs that you gave up and you felt they were not meant for you. What were your reasons? So these are some of the things that we'll be discussing. I appreciate all of you for joining me. I hope you've learned a thing or two about me, and I hope one or two things have touched you and you might use them in your career journey. You might use them and know how to cope with unemployment in the future. So thank you very much, guys, and have a wonderful day.